So it seems like much of the economy, the housing sector is in free fall. New home sales data came out today, and I believe, I might have these numbers backwards, but I believe new home sales are down 8.1% month over month. And the price of new homes, the average price of new homes, I believe closed, not under contract, but deals that actually closed, is down 9.5%. In May, the average price of a new home was in the neighborhood of $450,000. Now it's around $402,000. And this lines up with what I've been saying, the common sense thing about interest rates. When interest rates rise, people can't afford to bid as much on homes. And if interest rates rise across the board for everyone, well, then everyone has less buying power. So the prices of homes are going to fall. Now, does this mean that these are the exact same homes that are just selling for 9.5% less? No. The way it's going to start out is that people are just going to bid on the lower priced new homes. They're not going to, they're not going to buy as expensive of a home. But as demand for the higher end new homes wanes, they're going to have to cut their prices because ultimately builders do want to sell those homes. They don't want them just sitting empty. And according to, I believe it's pronounced Pulte Homes, forgive me, they're not in my area, so I've never really dealt with them or known anyone who's dealt with them, so I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce it, but I think it's Pulte, P-U-L-T-E, Homes. They're a very big developer, and according to them, their cancellation rates on contracts, meaning after somebody comes into like one of their studios or their models, or comes in with a realtor and says, hey, we want to buy a new home, and they sit down, they sign the deal, they put money down in escrow, their rate of people canceling after that point, once the contract is signed but before it goes to closing, has doubled year over year. So I believe this month last year, their cancellation rate was something like 7%, and now it's around 15%. And additionally, Pulte Homes has cut back on their rate of building spec homes, which a spec home is a house that nobody's actually ordered. They're just building a house and then going to try and sell it after it's completed. And of course, you only want to do that when you're confident that you're going to be able to sell the house. Since they are getting a lot of cancellations and the average price of new home sales are falling, demand is clearly waning as a result of rising interest rates. Pulte Homes, and I'm sure all the other builders, are cutting back on building spec homes because they want to wait for somebody to actually try and buy the house, come to them and say, hey, we want this house, before they start building it, because they don't want to get stuck with a bunch of inventory. Their inventory is probably building up already. Forgive me if you can hear thunder in the background. It is raining right now, and not much I can do about that. I'm not going to build a studio as much as some people might want me to because they hate my audio. I'm sorry. I don't care that much about audio. As long as my words are clear and you can understand what I'm saying, I don't need it to be crystal clear. I'm not a professional here. I'm never going to make money at this. So, cry harder next time. So back to the issue at hand. The issue here is that all this is happening while the Fed is still trying to fight inflation. And that is the wild card in this situation, because if inflation were kind of at normal-ish levels, let's say around 3%, even above the Fed's 2% target, we were down around 3%. I would say the Fed's going to cut rates this week. But of course, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what's expected. What's expected is that the Fed is going to hike rates by 75 basis points. Some crazy people even think by 100. The fact is, it's clear that we're seeing more and more businesses every day feeling the effects of this recession. Yesterday it was Walmart. Today it's Pulte Homes and all the other home builders, all the new home builders. Existing homes will, of course, suffer a similar fate. Your friend from college who decided to get rich quick by becoming a realtor in the last 2 years during the great post-pandemic boom in real estate is going to go bust. They're going to be flipping patties at McDonald's because that's going to be one of the few businesses that is still looking to hire when all is said and done. McDonald's actually beat estimates for its earnings today. McDonald's is hiking their prices, which is quite noticeable to me as a semi-frequent McDonald's consumer. I go there because it is cheaper than all the other fast food places, and when I want fast food, I'm more concerned about price than anything else, because it's kind of all crap as far as I'm concerned. So I want the cheapest crap possible, and it is still possible to get some decent deals if you jump through hoops with McDonald's, like using their app and entering the little coupon code at the kiosk. And so by putting up these slight barriers to entry, McDonald's has been able to extract a lot of extra dollars out of people who are not willing to do that. Even though if you're someone like me who's a stickler for price, you can still kind of get decent pricing on certain items. Like I always do, the buy one get one free Big Mac. That's my typical thing if I go into McDonald's, because the price of a Big Mac is absurd these days. It's like $4.19. And that's for just the burger. That's not fries and a drink. So I never get the meal. I get the buy one, get one thing, and then for $4.19 I get 2 Big Macs, which comes to $2.10 a piece plus tax. That's acceptable to me. That's about what they're worth. Anything more than that, I don't think I would be a consumer of McDonald's, because their food is garbage. But for those who are just going to McDonald's for the convenience, because there's McDonald's everywhere, they know what they order, they don't have to think about it, they can just go in there and they throw down their money and they say, just fine, take my money, give me my McNuggets, I'll pay my $4.50 for 10 McNuggets and the Szechuan sauce. Those are the people who are now making McDonald's money. But there's an interesting article in Zero Hedge talking about how there are some more people who are eating like me at McDonald's, not quite going to the extent of using the app for every trip to get those daily coupons, which, it's great. Who's going to go to McDonald's more than once a day? So who cares if you can only use the coupon once a day? I mean, I think going to McDonald's more than once a week is a questionable life decision, but hey, it's convenient. They're everywhere, so I'm not going to shame someone for doing that. But people are ordering less expensive items on the menu, which in and of itself is going to be, to me, is a sign that the consumer is not doing too well. If people are going into McDonald's and actually thinking about the price, that's not a good indicator. And it might seem trivial, but in normal economic times, the average American doesn't really worry about the price of their food at McDonald's. Because McDonald's is just, it's a cheap meal, and they pay whatever they need to pay, and they get their Big Mac and their fries and their Coca-Cola, and they're happy. But when they start worrying about the prices at a place like McDonald's and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to get a McDouble and a small fry instead of a Big Mac and a Big Mac meal. Are you really saving any money or value by getting a McDouble and a small fry? No, they're not much of a value if you look at what they cost. But people are trying to spend less because they are worried about their finances. Because the cost of living in all other aspects, even if McDonald's isn't raising their prices, that is going up. The cost of, making your own food at home is going up. The cost of electricity, the costs of gas, and then, of course, who could forget rent/mortgages? And the best I can tell, things will not get better from here. The economy does not need a reason to contract. Far from it. The economy needs a reason to grow. And without a reason to grow, the default standard is that the economy is going to contract. And that's what we've seen now 2 quarters in a row. I know it's not official yet. It won't be official until Thursday. But the Biden administration has already told us 2 negative quarters for GDP in a row is not a recession. That's the Biden administration trying to slow roll this and trying to get out in front of the story and basically admitting, yeah, Q2 GDP is going to be negative, just like the Atlanta Fed model shows. Now, how negative? We don't know. I mean, it's possible it could be less than 1% negative, but negative is negative. A negative number is a contraction. It's not growth, it's not expansionary. And it's to be expected when the Fed is raising rates. That's what happens every single time. Now, what's the silver lining in all this? Well, the faster the recession comes, the faster the consumer is crushed, the faster the people quit shopping so much and buying so many goods, and rather start saving their money, the sooner inflation will end. Now, that's not to say that it's the consumer's fault that we're experiencing high inflation. Far from it. It's not like every time that somebody decides to go out shopping, we have a bout of inflation. No, the reason why we have a bout of inflation is because the federal government's answer to the Wu flu was to lock down our economy, shut down production, and maintain the same level of consumption by subsidizing it through PPP loans and mortgage forbearance and rent moratoriums and student loan forbearance and all these other programs. And so as consumers spent that money and sopped up the quantity of available goods in the economy, goods and services, there was an imbalance between demand and supply. Demand was greater than supply because there wasn't anything being produced, yet people had plenty of money to spend. And so when demand outweighs supply, you get an increase in prices. But once that windfall is spent, once all of that unexpected money, all that money that they didn't earn has been spent, inflation, in theory, should come back down. That doesn't mean the prices will return to where they were. No, not at all. Prices will stay high. But inflation will stop rising. That is assuming that the inflation was caused by a one-time injection of money rather than a sustained annual injection of money. If the government just prints all this money and hands it out to people every single year trying to prop up GDP, well, then we will have sustained inflation for as long as the government continues to pursue that same inflationary policy. And so, in short, the federal government has gotten the consumer addicted to these infusions. And the withdrawals will be painful. The withdrawal will manifest itself as unemployment or in better cases, people just having to cut back and spend less. Maybe they won't be able to maintain as luxurious of a lifestyle, but they might be able to, stay in their same home. They might be able to keep their same job, but everything will cost more, and they will just have to get by with less. And these sorts of things are never popular. People never want their standard of living to go down. But when their standards of living were raised artificially higher, people were living high on the hog, they inevitably must come down. And so, as sad as it is, seeing pain for the American consumer is a good thing. It means we're on the road to recovery. But whether or not Congress and the Fed try to obstruct that progress by abating the collapse of the American consumer, that's a question yet to be determined. So, with that said, if you're getting tired of economic videos, I'm sorry, but we're getting into one of those periods again to where I'm just going to have to talk about it a lot. Multiple times a week, probably. Now, even I will get burnt out, and I'll start talking more about foreign policy and other stuff, and there's still that war in Ukraine going on after all. But with that said, I will see folks back here tomorrow.